afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to ETAuto. We have begun with the month of February, and here we are with lots of momentum happening in the Indian automotive industry. We have started with the Bharat Mobility Show at Bharat Mandapam. The budget has come out, and the month of January has just ended. To share more details about what's happening in the industry, we have with us Mr. Shashank Srivastava, who's the Senior Executive Officer, Marketing and Sales of Maruti Suzuki India Limited, and we have with us Mr. Arun Malhotra, who's the industry expert here. So, just to begin with, we're here at the venue itself. So, how have you seen the momentum? You've seen visitors visiting your stalls. What are they seeing here? How have you seen the response on the Bharat Mobility Show here?
Well, I would say everywhere I see a lot of optimism, a lot of enthusiasm in all sections of the society, whether it is the policymakers, whether it is the auto manufacturers, or even the general public. And I think that's because India has become one of the largest markets as far as the passenger vehicles is concerned. India is shining example of good economic growth in an otherwise very tepid growth in the global platform. So I think a lot of positivity, and I sense that this would continue for a long time with the government policies continuing, and we saw that in the budget. We are seeing some very positive trends in the industry. We saw that in January as well, and we'll speak about that. So I think overall, my impression is that auto is going to play a very big role in the overall economy of our country, as it has done in the past. And this event is a reflection of that confidence. It's a reflection of the great strides that India and Indian OEMs have made in the pursuit for being the leaders in the global auto space.
Yeah. So we used to have the biennial Auto Expo, after 2 years. Then now with the Bharat Mobility in talks with the happening every year, what is your take on that?
Yeah, so we had the Auto Expo last year, and that Auto Expo happens with the frequency of 2 years. So this is some sort of a 1 year gap that this mobility show has come, and should this become a annual event and that continues, then we will have a auto show every year. In some ways, it's good because you could see the progress being made continuously, and therefore there are a lot of times when 2 years, there are a lot of things change, and maybe you miss out some things to exhibit in between, but that can be taken care of here. By the way, that Auto Expo is now in Greater Noida. This one is in the heart of Delhi. So I suppose while the audience might be similar, but it could be at different points of time, as I said, with a gap of 1 year. So both can coexist. But let's see how it goes from here.
Okay, so coming about talking about the budget, so I would want to take from both of you, what do you think about the budget for the auto industry? What are the top highlights here?
One thing good about the budget is consistency is there. So there's the consistency of government policy and the key sectors which can drive the economy, whether it is agriculture, whether it's industry, all sectors are focused upon. So the fundamentals are strong, and I think it's continuity because industry likes continuity, consistency, and a positive outlook. Which Shashank mentioned, there's a positive outlook, there's energy, there's enthusiasm. So that's why it's a positive budget. Although it's a budget.
So what are your top highlights of the budget?
Listen, as far this was an interim budget, so it's interim budget. You don't really expect some really breakout sort of announcements. It's a vote on account, and however, what the auto industry hoped for, that since we have seen some very positive economic growth in the recent past in India, that there would be some sort of continuity of those policies. As you know, the auto industry strength, its health is very closely related to the overall health of the economy. So anything which is positive for the economy is positive for the auto industry. And I think the finance minister has done very well because she has indicated a continuity of policies which Mr. Malhotra just mentioned. And I am happy to see that the government capex still continues at a very rapid pace. It's gone 3x in the last 5 years. This year, it's further increased by 11%. That's the point of almost 11 lakh crore is the investment in capital, and that has got a very positive, effect continuity effect on employment, on business, etc. And as Mr. Malhotra was mentioning, that's not the only sector. It's not just the physical infrastructure, it's also about agriculture, it's also about digital infrastructure, and so on and so forth.
So if we see the top highlights, if you have to see, if you have to request the government the top highlights for auto industry in the final budget, what would that be?
I think he's the expert.
See, one clearly I believe in auto industry, at least the entry level, whether it's two-wheelers or four-wheelers, it's taxed very high. It's 28% and combine the road tax is 40%. I believe at the entry level, whether for passenger vehicles or two-wheelers, and with a certain size and catering to a certain profile, there should be a reduction at least. And I feel it increase the market size, if not reduce it. Probably the government's concern is always that the revenue might go down, but I believe that sector can grow more exponentially because bottom of the pyramid is important. Four wheelers, we still have those good volumes, but two wheelers clearly, I think since we had the GST and the price hikes are out of mission, safety, the market is still not reached the figure of over 89. Four wheelers, much better scale. That's one requirement. The other thing will be the FAME policy should be more encompassing. The entry policy and we need to reduce emissions. We need to reduce our oil by consumption, which is there. So it should be a more multi-pronged approach, which is there. And we are waiting for it because that's till March only. That will be
Hopefully so. So coming back to the sales from the month of January, sir, starting with the passenger vehicle segment. So how have you seen that the demand momentum? I think the industry has almost touched 4 lakh figure, a little below the 4 lakh figure. But how is the momentum now compared to December? Because December there was lots of retails happening, lots of discounting happening. So what is the momentum right now?
Yeah, so actually, this January was in some ways a record year, record month. 395,000 almost the wholesales, and this is the highest ever in the history of Indian passenger vehicle industry. But it is sort of a every January this happens. Wholesale is much higher than retails, just like the opposite happens in December, where people push for larger retails and have a smaller wholesale. So you saw the wholesale in December a little muted, and a high retail figure as we wanted to reduce the inventory both in the network and in the factory. I, of course, a part of the retails which are being reflected in December would now actually the vehicle would be registered in January. So the retail is lagging the wholesale in January about 90,000 units. So theoretically speaking, and I say theoretically because it's this is the difference in wholesale and retail. There's no official announcement of stock levels, but in the inventory stock levels now around 270, 265 to 70,000 in the industry.
For the industry.
That's about 20, 21 days, still very much in control. Although when you will see the Vahan figure for January, it would be like very high, and you might say, oh, it's a great retail month, but actually much of those registration which has happened in the first week of January has been already retailed in the month of December, and it's only the registration which has happened in the first week of January. So you could see a wrong interpretation or at least a misleading interpretation of some of the figures which will be coming out from as we go along in the month.
so, the better way of looking at it is one must look at the wholesale of the 2 months, December and January, and take the Vahan figures of December and January. It generally is balanced out. So it's more indicative because Vahan, as he said, reads. So I think overall it's good. Stocks again, December at touched all-time low. January has gone up. I think it's about 30 days. Shashank mentioned 20
20,
days.
20, 21
Right,
days.
so it's been about 20, 30 days. That's what the industry sources say. But I think it's on a normal course, and the demand is still there. And we are on strong.
Yeah, the PV, the passenger vehicle segment has always taken the lead, in numbers for the last 2 years at least. So, how has been the momentum in the two wheelers and the commercial vehicle segments now?
Two-wheelers are also done okay, although there's no record figures. Because if two-wheelers have to create a record, it has 20 lakhs a month. So two-wheelers is 14.5 lakhs or 14.6 lakhs. But consistently they have done well. I think two-wheelers are on a positive note. They probably closed out the year by 19 million, which is still lower than the 21 million in 2019. But I think there is a positive movement, and as Shashank mentioned, this focus on agriculture, health, education, all the basic sectors, ultimately will help also to be a market.
Yeah.
So overall good, but nothing, no no great prices. Like we had highest retail in December, what Dusty mentioned in our first vehicle, highest dispatch January. Two-wheeler is more persistent, not that pressure as you asked.
Certain concerns still are there. So, how have you seen the rural momentum progressing?
Rural growth, if you look at the cumulative figure, April to January, rural growth is around 11.9%. That compares very well actually with urban growth. Urban growth is about 8.5. So the rural growth is still higher than the urban growth. Um, but of course, it is at a lower base. Uh, Rural segment is now around 32-33% of the industry. Although for Maruti Suzuki, it's a little higher. Because we are also in the smaller cars where our market share is much better. So I would say the rural sentiment has been positive, although here is a red flag which we wanted to raise for the next year, and which is that the Kharif output has been less than the previous year, about 4.5% less. The MSPs has been higher, and I'm told the Rabi sowing is like on par with last year, but we have to wait because the Rabi sowing season ends now. Yeah, yeah, it's just going to end, and then we will see what the actual Rabi output is. But there are some states, by the way, where we will see probably, and on the rural front, we think there could be a weakness going forward because in the Kharif output, sugarcane is down around 11.5%. Oil seeds are down about 16%, 6% down for cotton. So some areas will see that stress more than the other areas. Hopefully, Rabi crop should be good. Although there is some concern on the pulses, but I think the rural demand should hold.
Yeah, but a question to both of you, like what are the demand drivers in the passenger vehicle segment? Like we have seen the demand growth for SUVs, but what are the other demand drivers do you see for the next 2 months? Because we're almost closing the fiscal in the next 2 months.
So it's very different in election because we have elections also can be announced any time. So elections, generally when the time election seems to go down in some segments. But I think overall, as you mentioned, as rural is growing and probably it's not about its full potential. Right? For rural market, a lot of benefits have been market in terms of investment, whether in terms of this MSP and so it should improve. So it's slightly, but I don't think it's a spectacular performance in the next 2 3 months. So probably once things stabilize, then we'll be growth. But overall, okay performance. That's fair.
Actually, my view is that currently April, January, we are around that 34.8 lakh so far in the PV industry. Our expectation is it should be around 42 lakh by the end of the year. And the factors which you say that can influence, generally speaking, if the since car buying is actually a discretionary purchase, so the sentiment has to be very positive if for car purchasing. So one is the economy should continue to do well, and I think it is going to do well. The expectation for economic growth is pretty high. Second is that the interest rates, I believe, going forward in the next 2 3 months, in the auto retail loan rates will go up, and that's could have an adverse effect. Of course, oil prices, the cost of running of the vehicle also has a big impact. The oil prices should be steady around 77-80 dollars. That's the expectation, but you could see because of geopolitical situation some concerns there as well. Um, Otherwise, I think on the other front, like on the stock levels, I think we are at good mark now. On the pending bookings, this is like going micro. The pending bookings down substantially. So I think there are some very good positive factors. I think the biggest positive factor is the economic growth and the positive sentiment. And the biggest threat to my mind is the interest rates continuing to be sticky because of the sticky inflation.
So I think domestic, as you mentioned, we are on strong footing,
Yeah.
except the interest rates, which I believe is very marginal, no impact. But the global things which happen,
Yes,
they cause
exactly.
a problem, and that is not within them.
I was just coming to that, the global, issues that you talked about. Are they impacting the Red Sea crisis that we have seen earlier? We have seen the Russia-Ukraine war happening the last 2 years, and then things have been happening globally. Do you think any of these are impacting your exports or for the industry as a whole?
Listen, if you look at our exports grew 37% in January. We are accumulative at about 2 lakh
So going
27,000.
forward, sir, do you see any kind of
So how do
challenge?
you gonna get
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. So I'll have to have a meeting of all the world leaders, the global leaders, and know exactly what's going to happen on the geopolitical front. But seriously speaking, exports we are projecting a growth for exports both for next year and also in the current year where we should be ending with a good growth over the past few years that we are on. In fact, we have crossed the 260,000 mark last time. We were at
For Maruti,
260,000
yeah.
for Maruti Suzuki. And I think with more than 40% of the exports coming from Maruti Suzuki, we continue to remain bullish for exports even for the next year, even though the global projection for GDP growth
It's very low.
is a little lower than what it is this year. 3.3 was is expected in this year. Next year is expected to be 2.8.
So, what is bringing that positive momentum for you, sir, here?
Yeah, so remember, these overall GDP growth are largely affected by US and China. We don't export to either. So Eurozone, where we also export, Eurozone is expected to be a little positive at a lower base. Lower projection for the US overall growth, and for China also a lower growth projected about 4.6 against 5.4 of this financial year.
In the exports, which is very critical in the passenger vehicles, so if Shashank mentioned Maruti has a 40% market share, it has remained constant or slightly better up than last year. This in two-wheelers, it is still about 15 to 20% decline. So the markets which are for two-wheelers,
Yeah.
they are more impacted, or probably that customer segment is more impacted. But I think it's an unsung hero. I personally believe the exports of this industry for this year is outstanding considering the overall global economic environment.
Like the Ajay Devgan of Indian film
Unsung hero.
industry.
So the export is unsung hero. Like I call it, the three-wheeler is unsung hero of the last year, which is not talked about. That is, exports is also for passenger vehicles is an unsung hero. They've really done well and continue to do it.
So one favorite topics are SUVs. If we see the just want to understand that hatchbacks, sedans, and SUVs, where do they stand right now for the industry, and how do you see that moving forward? For the next 2 years, probably
Uh, s-
segment wise, sir.
yeah, segment wise. So we have seen a decline in hatches. Just 3 years back, they were about 46.5% of the overall industry. In this year, April to January, they are roughly 27.5, 28%. So there is a decline there. This year, actually, there has been an increase in the premium hatch segment. So that's a positive sign. Of course, SUVs continue to increase. Cumulatively, April to January, SUVs have crossed the 50% mark for the first time. For the first time, they were at 49 till last year, till last month, cumulative basis. Uh, January alone, they were at around 52% of the overall industry. Uh, MPVs have been growing. They were in January 10% of the industry. Sedans have steadily declined at their peak, which was in 15, 16. They were it was Sedan was about 24.5% of industry. It's now about 9% or so.
I personally believe the entry level hatch, this has to grow because that will create the big base. Otherwise, we'll be caught in that single digit low percentage growth. That's where industry has to do something, government has to do something. So that is where the large pie can be expanded to a large extent. So that
Yeah.
motorization can be much stronger.
Yeah, like you were saying, what would is our expectation for the next 2 years? Well, SUVs should continue to increase. Probably from this 50-51%, they should go to about 53%,
For
54%.
the industry.
For the industry, I'm talking from the industry perspective, to around 53, 54%. Sedans should be steady. I think a decline can be expected around 8% or so from the current 9% of the same. For the hatches, though, as Mr. Malhotra is saying, we believe that the decline that has happened in the last 3-4 years is because of the affordability factor. The price is going up faster than the income increases for that segment. But some economic research suggests that maybe you can see a rebound where the affordable factor can get better, in the sense that as the economy grows, you might see an increase in the income for these segment of people, and prices may not go as rapidly as they have done in the recent past. You could see the affordability factor getting better, and our expectation is that maybe towards the second half of 2026, you could see some amount of a turnaround in this.
For the entry
Challenge I
level.
see in the entry level hatches today, there's not much excitement. The number of companies, very few, nobody is focusing on that, and even more have less models. So you need more excitement, more activity also, more models also. When this rebound happens, as Shashank mentioned, can't happen for one or two models only. Like one of the reasons SUV growth is also look from the entry level SUV to the mid-size UTV, the number of models and variants. So there is a lot of excitement and enthusiasm, a lot of combined activity. So that is also required along with that purchasing power which goes up and government intervention which are
So
required.
you're saying Maruti needs to bring more entry level
That I
models?
leave it to them.
No, but I actually little bit of disagreement here because the reason why you saw more action in the SUV space was because the segment was growing, and in a growing segment you see emergence of sub segments and people OEMs want to. We have brought in the Fronx, the Jimny because we saw the opportunity here in the small car market which is a shrinking market as far as overall volumes is concerned. This year expected only 12 lakh against 15.6 lakh at the peak. I don't think, and with 70% of that belonging to Maruti, I don't see there are very many companies who would like to push new models in this segment. So I think the primary thing which will drive the sale will be that economic factor of affordability ratio, which I mentioned, rather than the models which I feel will neither see a large addition nor now a large decrease.
Yeah, but why do you see the sedan? Where are the sedan consumers going? Moving to SUVs, and like, what is the reason for the sedan?
One thing which I see is the benefits of sedan, which were there, that upper, the thing, is a lot of those benefits have been incorporated in the interior of the SUVs and the SUVs, and they still have the benefits of SUV. So sedan has that pressure point which is there. And now with this lower end SUV is also being launched at a lower price point. So it's eating it. Otherwise, the price gap also. So that is a challenge. But having there's a market for that also. But as Shashank mentioned, you can't expect any spectacular growth. If it's remain constant, it's a good achievement.
Okay, what kind of consumers can we see for the sedan segment?
So sedan, one thing which gets missed out in this overall decline of sedan is that the real big decline seems to be happening in the mid sedan segment. The entry sedan segment is about 75% of the total sedan market. So if it's overall about 9%, 7.5% is entry sedan. And I think, as he mentioned, and I agree with Mr. Malhotra, that in the mid sedan segment, you now have the similar price points, overlapping price points in a equivalent SUV, and there the utilization of the interior space is much more flexible because you don't have that third box which is useless if you don't put a thing. You have only that much of interior space in a sedan. Also the driving position in a sedan, the good ground clearance for Indian roads, that's very good actually, that the SUV offers, is all going in favor of the SUVs. And I think, however, there is something in sedan which should keep it steady. And our projection long term, 2030 also, is that it should be around that 8.5% of the overall industry in 2030.
Maybe by 5, 6 years later, also it should
Should
stay.
be around, but it's come at that level where probably it may not
Reach that
fluctuate too
level,
much.
it can only go up.
Yes, yes. That's
Just
right.
one last thing, sir. For the next fiscal, probably like the next 1 year, do you see the momentum in the PV segment like keep growing because we have had the high base for the last 2 years now? Do you see that affecting any time for the next fiscal?
See, passenger vehicle, the way they have grown. I mean, if you Shashank is mentioning, we passed about 2.2 million. And this is about 20% or 25% higher than what was achieved in the all-time peak of 1819, which is really strong as a water. So whether it's a commercial vehicle, whether it is two-wheelers, they are still below that. So if you grow so high, the base is high. So the growth in that sense will be limited. Probably no single digit. That's like sharp. In a better position to comment on it.
Yeah, so I think on the economic growth front, which is one of the major things affecting, it's a positive. But as he said, it's at a positive at a very high base. Even at with all the things running positive, we will end this year probably around at 7%, 7.5, that range of growth, which will come to about 42 lakh in absolute volumes. So it will grow from here definitely because of the economic growth. But there are some signs which, as I mentioned, on the monsoon front, on the kharif output, on the rabi sowing, the interest rates for this thing should go up actually by about 120 basis point. That's a negative for the industry. Then the pending bookings, which were huge, about 1 million, and 1st April of 2023. will come down to approximately 400,000 in 1st April. So there is a
So, on this bookings, I would say there's an old saying in English, Mother Hubbard's cupboard is empty.
hmm,
So it is empty only inside one or two variants or one or two models.
yeah.
So we are begging to buy, sell, and
And,
consume whatever.
yeah, Hubbard's cupboard is also smaller. So and also the inventory pipeline, which at the beginning of April was about 170,000 or so, will increase by about a lakh
That's
in this year,
that is
and therefore the 1 lakh of the buffer which was available to fill the inventory pipeline is not there. Therefore, I believe with the high base and with all these pluses and minuses, we would see growth, but it would be at a single digit. And I think Siam will probably be announcing
Yeah.
officially this thing, and probably a low single digit growth is what I
5%
would
or
say.
something around 5%.
I don't know the exact
Yeah.
percentage, but I think they must be polling with all the
Right.
manufacturers and announcing
All
this.
right. Thank you so much, sir.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot for your insights and thank you for giving your time through this event.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.